couple of weeks ago, I was thinking to myself, there really isn't that much to look forward to for the rest of this year gaming-wise. Well, that thought was way off. I've compiled a list of 10 games coming out later this year to be excited for. The games included here were selected based on a mix of general internet excitement, my audience interests, and my own personal taste, so leave a comment if I'm missing a game you can't wait to play. Starting off with number 10, we have LEGO Horizon Adventures. Not necessarily at the top of my list of games coming out this year, but it does look high quality. Not made by Traveler's Tale, who has been the primary studio behind most of the LEGO games, Guerrilla and Studio Gobo look to put their own spin on that formula. Immediately, one difference is that everything you see can actually be made by Legos. The visuals are so good at a glance, it looks like you're watching a fan-made stop-motion film, which kind of feels full circle because you play with Legos to pretend like they are the full realization of that franchise, to then play a game that utilizes those Legos to pretend like you are playing with those Legos to imagine playing the games? Maybe it's not that deep, but rather just a gateway drug to help bring over Nintendo kids to the big boy PlayStation. I'm half joking, but from what I've seen of gameplay, it's definitely more targeted towards a younger demographic, but that doesn't mean it can't be fun. I am a lot more excited for Life is Strange Double Exposure than I thought it could be. I can't say I relate much with many of the struggles of the protagonist or supporting characters of this series, but I am a sucker for games like Telltale's Walking Dead or Until Dawn where your choices affect the story. Mix that with superpowers and an engaging mystery and I'm game. My introduction to the series was True Colors, which I was pleasantly surprised by and am now in the process of working my way through Life is Strange 1, since Double Exposure is the continuation of that protagonist, Max. Smooth and responsive combat is not going to be found here, but you are rewarded by being perceptive and proactive in the story versus just passively watching. In the first game, Max had the ability to rewind time to change outcomes, so technically we've been exploring the idea of multi-realities for a little bit now, but Double Exposure seems to be taking it to the next level with another great setup for a murder mystery. I'm getting a lot of Desmond from Lost vibes, and so I'm all here for it. Avowed doesn't seem to have that much excitement around it. Either that or the fanbase is just quiet, but it does look great from everything I've seen. I haven't played or finished very many Obsidian games, but their resume of quality does speak for itself. The box cover alone is so impressive I'd get a tattoo of it if it probably wasn't already found on the calf of some middle-aged pasty white bartender somewhere in the Midwest. Another great example of a game that puts weight into your decisions, but within the classic Western RPG formula. Good news to some and maybe bad news to others. Avowed is rather focused for RPG standards with no massive open world and the completion time being well under 40 hours. Personally, I think this is great. It's refreshing to have games of different levels of focus and skill to help give much needed variety to the industry. A great example of a game you may want to just check out on Game Pass one weekend and see how the adventure unfolds. Being a very casual Sonic fan, I was excited to see an expanded remaster of my favorite Sonic title that has come out since I was born. I've never ended up finishing Sonic Generations, but I had a lot of fun exploring and contrasting both classic and 3D Sonic. Puts into perspective the pros of each style while avoiding the fatigue of each other. I'm not sure if most hardcore fans of the series would agree, but the classic sections in Generations are some of the best 2D Sonic levels in the last 20 years. Not that the bar is particularly high there. Visually there hasn't been a massive leap in quality, and I can't say I've been able to spot out 4K 60 with ray tracing, but it does look like a solid attempt to modernize. The star of the show that actually puts Sonic on this list is Shadow. Very similar to Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, the Shadow section of the game is entirely new and structurally different to the rest of the title. It's almost like they packaged an entirely new smaller game to get audience to want to pay the full price. I'm not sure about the business logistics, but if Sonic X Shadow's Generations ends up being of a similar quality to Bowser's Fury, Sonic fans will be in for a treat. It's a great time to be a Mario RPG fan. Not sure how many of these titles Nintendo has been sitting on, but between Super Mario RPG Remake, Thousand Year Door, and now Mario & Luigi Brothership, the selection is plentiful. Unlike Thousand Year Door or Mario RPG, this title is completely original. While borrowing many of the elements of those other Mario RPGs, Brothership seems to have more of an action-adventure focused. With a variety of different puzzles and platforming, there seems to be a lot of systems to explore. I'm not sure where this game takes place, but the island Boatland feels kind of related to Dinosaur Land from Super Mario World, which could serve for a fun and colorful backdrop. The presentation altogether looks and sounds adventurous and lively. Are you planning to pick up Mario & Luigi Brothership? Probably the most divisive title on this list has to be Assassin's Creed Shadows. Personally, I've struggled to get into the loop of both the older and newer AC titles, but I am interested in the setting. Feudal Japan is a dream setting for many fans of the series, but did Ubisoft wait too long? We'll have to wait and see, but the potential is there. Much of the controversy online seems to be centered around one of the two protagonists being a black man in a game that takes place in Japan instead of a native Japanese character. Or I guess specifically a Japanese male, since the other protagonist is a Japanese woman. Similar to Indiana Jones later on this list, it's important to stand out and be identifiable when it comes to a category of comparable games. In some ways, I'm sure Shadows will be more impressive than, say, Ghost of Tsushima, but in other ways, not so much. And so minimizing the comparisons with differences is all the more important. Having two protagonists with unconventional backgrounds is immediately interesting, and so I personally think this has a lot to do with marketing. All that said, hopefully the gameplay is there and some of the bloat present in other titles is absent or at least reduced. Black Myth Wukong has a lot of hype around it and has had it for quite a while now. Between gameplay that has demoed well and a few controversies, this game has stayed ever present at the top of many gamers' list of anticipated. A while back, there was a less than flattering report around the developers of Black Myth Wukong Game Science having, for a lack of a better term, toxic work environment towards women. At this point, there has been some evidence that questions the validity of those claims, and so ultimately it just comes down to hearsay. So come to your own conclusions there. Perhaps a more relevant controversy to many gamers is this game will be exclusive to PS5 and PC at launch due to current optimization issues on Xbox, allegedly. When it comes to gameplay, there are clearly a lot of similarities to FromSoft titles, even though the developers have tried to make it clear this is more inspired by than an attempt to emulate. For me, I've said on multiple occasions I don't enjoy but respect the FromSoft formula with a degree of FOMO. Earlier this year, I did have a blast with Jedi Survivor, and so Souls inspired may be more my lane. How hyped are you for Black Myth Wukong? Okay, quick poll. How many of you watching are fans of Indiana Jones? Now, how many of you are diehard? I would imagine the majority of you like him, but few of you are hardcore. And I can't say that's a surprise when this franchise hasn't had a good movie in over 30 years. But there is an undeniable charm to an indie when given the proper quality. And so I think we should be excited to see if The Great Circle can bring some sort of respect to this franchise, even though I think that title sounds like a Dora the Explorer point-and-click adventure game. At first I thought it was quite the odd choice to make The Great Circle first person, considering how cinematic the source material is, but given it more thought, I do see some pros. For one, Machine Games are masters of the first-person perspective, so it makes sense to have them do what they're already great at. Also, with so many Indiana Jones-inspired games of quality like Uncharted, going first-person will help stand out and differentiate in a somewhat saturated genre. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle will be on Xbox and PC, or at least for now, so if you're on the fence and you have Game Pass, seems like a no-brainer to check out. In the number 2 spot is Astro Bot. Nintendo doesn't have a trademark on adventurous fun platforming, but Astro Bot could definitely feel at home within the Nintendo catalog of games, outside of the PlayStation-centric references. But if Astro Bot is anything like Astro's Playroom, the effective fan service will be there for fans of the brand, but more importantly, it will be a fundamentally great 3D platformer. Very clearly a gamer's game. and not one unique to a certain age demographic. As much as many of us love 3D Mario, having another franchise or series within the same stratosphere of quality is great for everyone. Team Asobi has shown they understand what makes a fun adventure platformer with their creative implementation of a wide array of various concepts. Unique to Astro is the innovative and tech demo-like use of the DualSense. The sensations and feedbacks really do add a new layer to the controller experience. To this point in the PS5's life cycle, Astro's Playroom is still visually impressive with 4K 60, and not to mention its use of HDR and an OLED. The Astro series has historically checked all the boxes from gameplay to presentation to overall charm. If Astro Bot ends up being a bigger and better playroom, what more can I ask for? As mentioned earlier, this year has snuck up on me with the amount of quality looking games coming out left and right for the remainder of this year, so I had a hard time just picking 10. A few honorable mentions to shout out real quick would include Metaphor ReFantasio, which has a lot of players excited, especially considering the pedigree of that studio. I thought about including Star Wars Outlaws, but had it on my beginning of the year video, so wanted to make room for other titles. Age of Mythology Retold is an awesome looking remake while also being by far one of the most approachable real-time strategy games, and so if you're interested, I would highly recommend it. Wanderstop and Neva were both smaller indie titles I could totally see finding an audience. Probably the biggest omission I left off was The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, and so leave a comment down below if the excitement applies to you. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero is the most anticipated title coming out this year for both me personally as well as my current audience. Even though a few dedicated gaming channels have put effort into covering this game, it does bring in a surprising amount of interest from both hardcore and casuals alike. Sparking Zero is constantly trending. Many anime games have gone the route of 3D Arena Fighter, but few if any have been able to match the quality and hype that comes with the Budokai Tenkaichi series. Unlike many traditional fighting games, this series is not balanced, at least in a 1v1 context, which is awesome. Certain characters are just better, and that's how it should be if you're trying to create an immersive environment representative of the source material. So far, it would seem Sparking Zero will be a great entry point for new and old fans. The controls seem to be very approachable to someone less familiar with fighting games, or even the series as a whole, while the crazy depth of modes will keep all players invested for seemingly a long time. For me, part of why I get so excited for Sparking Zero is due to its perfect mix of familiar but new. Generally, I'm the most interested in new IP and concepts, but I get the most excited for sequels due to already knowing how much I love the series and how much fun it can be. Now, I had 17 years and 3 console generations, and I'm even more excited to see how new and shiny everything will be compared to a direct sequel within the same generation. With an amazing marketing campaign that continues to drip out juicy information, the more we learn, the more there's to be excited for. This game won't be perfect, but if it can be a great modern Budokai Tenkaichi game, then I think most will be happy. I'm sure many of you have a game or two you're looking forward to the most likely Sparking Zero if my polls are an indicator, but hopefully some of these other titles I've mentioned have piqued your interest leading up to or after your most anticipated title of 2024. As always, I appreciate you for watching, and until next time, see ya!